and to understand the pain at losing a foster child from your foster home and some of the stories surrounding that, some of my personal experience. And I'm just going to chat about three things, particularly which make it so painful, and then trying to wrap up with some sort of things to help both of us, the child and the foster carer, to get through these tough times. Hi, if you don't know me, my name's Elspeth and I'm a foster carer for the last 3 years now, and so I've built up some experience. I'm a short-term foster carer, sometimes emergency foster care. Now, if you're thinking about getting into foster care, especially emergency or short-term foster care, you are absolutely going to have to go through this process where the foster child sadly moves on. Sometimes not so sadly, but whether they're going to go to family, birth family again, whether they're going to move on to a different foster care placement, short or long term, or to a relative, we just don't know, but you are going to experience this pain of a child moving on. So let's get into some of the painful issues that can happen. So my number one pain is the untimeliness of it sometimes, like not knowing what's happening when. In terms of them moving on to a different foster care placement, you have to wait for the right matching process. And sometimes you don't know how long that's going to take. You don't get any feedback about how many foster carers are in the looking, that your child social worker might not feed back to you, so you're really in the dark. That can be really frustrating in trying to prepare yourself and your family and the child. And if the child's going to be adopted, I mean, that's a whole other process, and I'm sure I could do a different video on that. But there's like a lead up to that where the decision's made at court, and then you have to go, well, there's lots of paperwork being done, and either you can be matched, the child will be matched on paper with potential adopters, or they go to these activity days where they can meet potential adopters. And then even if there's interest, each side, the child social worker and the adopter social worker, have to exchange paperwork and see if there's a matching process, and it could take months. But often I think the foster care can be sort of not knowing about where that's going, and so trying to again prepare your family is quite difficult. So you have to be prepared that as the foster carer, you're not going to be given necessarily a set of timelines that says in 2 months they're going, 3 months they're going, prepare. It's just you have to be constantly aware that they could be moving on in a soon period, which is very frustrating. But that's one of the sacrifices of being a foster carer. Number two, frustration and pain for me is sometimes, I'm sure other foster carers feel this as well, is that we're the last to know. There's all these high-level meetings amongst the child social worker, maybe our social worker, managers, maybe even parents involved, and there's these big decisions. And if you've got a good social worker or child social worker, they may phone and tell you what's going on, but sometimes it can be very last minute. I heard a story where I think these kids were there for some months, but they were literally told, the family were told on the morning of, and they had to all disappear. They had to pack up everything. I mean, that's awful. Like, that should never happen, but it does. So that's really tough because you've got no run up to that necessarily to how to deal with your process of grief. How to combat the last to know worry is that you can be emailing and phoning the child social worker or your social worker to try and get some communication, but it's a fine balance with being irritating and annoying and it being helpful to you. So you've got to tread that carefully, but be aware that it can happen. And my third pain of children leaving I've put under the heading of emotions. There's a lot of obviously sadness at the child going, and sometimes it can be incredibly sad, especially if it's a decision that you don't agree with, where the child is being moved to somewhere that you think potentially is unsafe, where you don't agree. Now, it's not my job as a foster carer to assess that, and that's the child social worker and their team. But I could have a vibe about where they're going, or a different carer or family member. but often you're overridden. You can be overridden. They will sometimes take your opinion into consideration, but they may be going to somewhere where you're not entirely happy with, and you just have to play ball. It's very frustrating. I've had a personal experience where the children, I've been told on the day that they're going, but they don't know where they're going. They haven't found a placement yet. I mean, that's incredibly unsettling for anybody, let alone the children. I mean, some of the practices seem really unacceptable, but this is the situation we're in. Certainly in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but you can get a call, the children are moving on, and they'll go and sit in an office somewhere until a suitable place is found for emergency placement. And I think a big emotion you can have as a foster carer is guilt. Depending on the circumstances surrounding the child's removal, sometimes there's an acute situation in your own home, especially if you've got a birth family, where it's just become unsafe to have a particular foster child. And so you have to raise your hand and go, I can't do this. And that is surrounded with a huge amount of guilt. But you have to keep everybody safe, including the foster child, obviously. And sometimes those hard decisions have to be made. There can be guilt when they leave, when you think, have I done enough? Was I good enough? I know we shouldn't have these because we do provide a safe environment, food, water, clothing, warm place, love, attention, safety, all these good things. But I think women, particularly women, are good at feeling guilt. And the way to get around that is really just to talk a lot to other foster carers about their experience, because there is a bit of solidarity within that. So with all this pain about the potential loss of foster children, sometimes we have a little clue when they're going in the next 6 months, or maybe no clue at all. It's important that as you go, you do things to help the memories of the child, the foster child, and the memories of you and your family. And so I don't know how other foster carers do it, but how I like to do things is constantly have a memory box, just buy a craft box from a simple craft store. And as soon as the child comes in, if they're doing drawings, paintings, writing stuff, or crafts, to put those in that box as a memory, not everything, but the good ones. And if they've been on particular good day trips, put the tickets in there, or a train trip, you can put the tickets, anything of small that will fit in the box, but of memories. And we like to do as a family a photo book of all of us, the family, with the foster child or children, and they can take that away with them. So they've got a little log of what's going on, and that's on top of the daily fostering log that we do. And we actually put a lot of photographs in there, so when they're 18 they can ask for access to that and have a look through and fill in the blanks of that part of their life where they just have no idea of what happened. Another thing you can do to help your family as well. Now, I'm sure in the UK we have these GDPR rules where we're not technically meant to have any digital record of them left when they go. You'd need to ask your supervising social worker about this, but you may want to think about keeping a photo album of them with your family for yourself. You can do handprints in clay alongside each other, or big canvases, and just all do handprints around as one big family. And maybe if there's other children coming to your family, they can slowly add their handprints to that canvas. And obviously if the child writes you something or draws you a picture that's particularly meaningful to you, you store that away, and remember to keep it somewhere safe so you can remember it when you want to, and it helps with that grief process once they've gone. So those are my 3 pain points discussed there about children leaving in foster care, which is often a big worry of potential foster carers. But I'm here to say that despite the pain and the frustration at not knowing sometimes when they're going and all these big emotions, it is so worth it. When you see the change in children coming from sometimes awful traumatic situations and the healing process that comes from them staying in your safe, warm house where they get regular meals, love and attention, help with their schoolwork, even a short time has a massive impact. And there are some testimonies out there from foster children who have been in homes and you think they've long forgotten you, but they remember the good times with you. It stays with them. So it's not a waste. It's always important and very valuable. So if you are thinking about foster care and this is one of your worries, please don't worry. It is good to do this thing. It isn't easy, but it is good. And I'd love to hear from other people who have gone through similar circumstances and any hints or tips they've got about dealing with these frustrations and pains of children leaving foster care. And if you are thinking about fostering, may I invite you to look at a couple of my other videos here or here about the Q&A, Weird and Wonderful Facts. It's our podcast of about fostering that we've been starting to try and demystify some of the things out there and worries about fostering. So go try fostering. God bless.